Hello, all. Welcome to a new Silly Point episode. Today, we're going to talk about a very, very historic test series, the India Australia Test Series. I think it has to be one of the greatest test series I've ever seen in my life. I know some other people have said this. I know Ian Chappell say that it's the greatest test series he's ever seen. So clearly, this test series is right up there. It's just amazing to see India do so well. India have always been a good limited overs team, but tests away from home has always been a question mark. And in this series, I think they proved beyond doubt that they're one of the, at least in the last, 5 to 8 years, they've been one of the best teams, best test teams. I don't know. What do you think, Zayed? What was your take on the series?
I agree. We probably,
Mm.
I guess, if you just compare series by series, I think the 2005 Ashes, of course, comes to mind as one of the best ever. But the context of the series, with all the injuries and all the problems that the Indian team had, and to come back from that, also to in a way get rid of the tag from the last series which they won in Australia, where Australia didn't have their two best players, and they had a weakened team. So kind of they got rid of that tag as well,
Yeah,
because
that's
India
true.
themselves, didn't have their strongest team either
Yeah.
this time around, and they still won. So the context of everything, of it all, I think this has to be one of the best series ever. And obviously coming back, day 5 of the last Test match. Obviously the rear guard action in the third Test, and then coming back and winning the last Test match, phenomenal.
Yeah. One thing I must say is it's commendable. It's commendable how each of these players that have come in, some of them, obviously making their debuts, and some of them having very limited international experience.
Yeah,
Guys like Mohammad Siraj, Shubman Gill, and Navdeep Saini, the three of them have consistently played cricket for India A.
yeah,
So they've been groomed over the last 2 or 3 years, and a lot of that credit must go to Rahul Dravid, who's
yeah.
been working behind the scenes. He's working at the NCA. He also coaches the India A teams and the under 19 teams. So right from the young days, a lot of these players are interacting with Rahul Dravid, are understanding what it takes to be a great player,
Yeah.
and you can actually see the impact that he's had on the international team. Phenomenal performance by Mohammad Siraj. Playing his first international series. Phenomenal, okay performance by Navdeep Saini. But again, he bowled quick. And Shubman Gill obviously had an
I think,
absolutely
yeah, his performance. I think obviously Rishabh Pant gets all the plaudits for being there at the end, winning it, and almost and also gets a lot of credit for this the third Test match,
yeah,
um, for taking the game away from Australia. But
yeah,
Shubman Gill on that final day, his 90 odd, in very good time as well. Obviously Pujara and him had a phenomenal partnership, but that 90 odd in good time just gave India a chance. I think had he scored 40, 50, and lost his wicket, which is what he was doing throughout the series. He got lots of 40s and 50s, but he
true,
never carried on.
yeah,
Then India might have been in trouble, and they might have blocked for a bit longer, and then the game would have been out of their reach.
true.
So I think he kept them in the game, with Pujara obviously holding one end, and obviously everyone knows about him.
Yeah,
I think
I,
your just to finish up, your famous stat of balls played. I think that Pujara in this Test series showed how relevant that can be by just hanging
I
in there.
yeah,
He didn't have a phenomenal series in terms of runs scored, but still, I think his average is 34, 35. But I think it was just the fact that he hung in there, which kept India in. And I think that's the importance, right? I mean, the likes of Smith and Labuschagne had very good series. They got a couple of big hundreds and 80s, 90s.
yeah.
But they didn't win the game, whereas Pujara was 40, 50s.
Well, that's the difference, right? Because they didn't have any player. They didn't have many players around them that could bat. That
Exactly.
that could take out time, that could bat. And I think in test matches, that's a very, very valuable thing to be able to do. If you have one or two players who can play out 100 balls per innings on average, that's an incredible thing. And then if you have a player like David Warner around around
Yeah.
those players, or a Steve Smith or a Labuschagne around those
Yeah.
players, then you can, every innings you can score 400 or 350, or you can at least be competitive, because it's not only about the first innings or the second innings. It's about the third, fourth innings. It's about ensuring that the bowlers come back for the third, fourth spells, and by that time they're tired. No
Yeah,
matter how good or how amazing the bowling attack is, which Australia's was, when they play four matches back to back,
yeah,
and when they're coming back for the third and fourth spells almost every innings, they're going to get tired.
yeah,
And that I think is totally down to Pujara. And I was also going to say, sorry, Shardul Thakur as well, a part of that India A group where consistently he's been groomed. He's been in and around the national side for the last 2 or 3 years. So
yeah,
again, very good bench strength and good pathways, for these players to represent India. So I think that's totally down to Rahul Dravid. And then just one other point on Natarajan and Washington Sundar, who
yeah,
obviously, they were net bowlers, right? They were taken as net bowlers. But I guess because they had spent about 1.5, 2 months in
yeah,
Australia, just bowling, understanding the wickets,
yeah,
I think that helped them a lot. And the fact that they had come from the IPL, which is an extremely competitive and high pressure tournament, I think that helped them here as well. So hats off. A combination of bench strength, a combination of the pandemic, which allowed the Indian team to have so many players, in one go. I mean, just imagine if this was squad of 15 or 16,
yeah.
India would not be able to field an 11. So,
Yeah, I mean, they would have had to like call players in from India and flying in, and then they're not ready, and because
yeah,
at least the likes of Natarajan and Sundar, they were there, used to the conditions for a month and a
exactly.
half. So that helped, no doubt. But I mean, still, having no Test match experience. Okay, it's one thing for them to play, T20s and ODIs, but Test
Yeah.
match is a completely different ball game in Australia.
Agreed.
Um, and yes, Washington Sundar got a 60 odd in the first innings. Again, that partnership with Thakur, I think that kind of set India. Otherwise, they could have been trailing by 150 and then lost the
Yeah,
game there and then.
I agree.
Um,
And, fearlessness,
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, at that stage, right, as a debutant, you're thinking, oh, if I don't do so well here,
yeah,
then I'm out the next game.
yeah.
Um, but again, they were pretty fearless, and they just backed their talent.
And I guess the other important thing and overall in the context of the series is you have to look at where India were after the first test.
Yeah.
Obviously, 36 all out with Kohli no longer part of the tour, so it was very easy for a lot of
Shami
the
out. I
Shami
think
out.
Shami was out after the first
It
test
was
as
very
well.
easy for them to just put their
Yeah.
hands on and be like, okay, we've had a bad start, we've
Yeah.
given it our best and just lose it and lose the series 4-0. It was very very possible.
Yeah.
So to have that mental strength to come back.
I mean, coming on to like the most impactful, not impactful, but the key moments
Yeah.
for you in this test series. What do you think?
Look,
What's your thoughts
actually, I
on
was
that?
just recapping and okay, India lost the first test match, but for like 3.5, 4 sessions, they were actually well ahead in that test match. It was only
Yep.
that 136 all
Last
out
session.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
they could have won the series 3-0, to be
Yeah.
honest. If they would have, gotten 100, 150 more runs, set Australia 200 to win, they could have also won
Yeah.
won that test match. Um, but I think, I mean, there are obviously quite a few significant moments. I mean, obviously the two innings of Rishabh Pant, the third test match, phenomenal. But what was very crucial, and I think it's in the third and fourth test matches when India were bowling, the wickets of David Warner early on, I think in both first innings,
Yeah.
were very crucial because that kind of set India on their way. And again, it was especially in the last test match when Siraj got Warner in the first over. I think it was very easy again because they had no Bumrah, a young bowling lineup for them to again just feel sorry for themselves and be like, oh, we've given it our best and lose it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to show the commitment and getting Warner out early twice, that in itself is a phenomenal achievement. Obviously, we can mention all the highlights and the big moments like
Yeah.
Pant's innings and
Yeah.
Siraj's 5 4 and all of that. But some of these things, the significant moments which kind of go under the radar, but they play a big part
Yeah.
in the whole test match. And obviously, the Washington Sundar and Thakur partnership
Yeah.
in the first innings of the last test.
I mean, for me, I can think of two moments as turning points for India.
Yeah.
One was obviously Ajinkya Rahane's magnificent 100 at the MCG.
Yes.
I think that was a great statement made by him. He was coming in, Virat Kohli out, he was captaining
Yeah.
the side, right? And a lot of pressure on him because he hadn't scored a lot of runs before that. to come out and then score 100 and then actually go on and win that test match.
Yeah.
I think that was a key turning point. And then obviously the other point was, in my opinion, was Hanuma Vihari's injury.
Yeah.
Right. In my opinion, if Hanuma Vihari wasn't injured,
Yeah.
right, he might have, he might have thought, right, he might, if he got a loose ball, he might have chased after it. He might have
Yeah.
nicked something. It could have been a different ball game. But because he was injured,
Yeah.
because R. Ashwin also had tweaked his back,
Yeah.
it kind of made their plan so much easier in Sydney. They knew, right, we can't run, we can't score runs. All we can do is just bat.
Yeah, no silly runouts like India had
No,
in the first things of that test match. They're like 4 runouts, right?
exactly. So all of that was just taken away from them.
Yeah.
Both Vihari and Ashwin, they didn't have to think about scoring runs. They didn't have to think about anything at all except for playing the next delivery.
Yeah.
And I think so. Again, that him getting injured was probably a blessing in disguise. Obviously, it's unfortunate that he got injured, and now he's out of the first 2 or 3 tests against England. But I think he did his job.
I don't think it matters.
It
Playing in
doesn't
India,
matter.
playing in India, I think they can.
He
Some of the first class records that some of the batsmen who haven't, the uncapped players have.
Yeah.
I don't think if in India they'll have a problem.
Yeah, I mean, you bring in Pandya at 6 or 7, and that's good enough.
Exactly.
Oh well.
Rishabh Pant can play as a batsman only. I think, to be honest.
In my opinion, a lot of blame should be placed on Nathan Lyon.
Yeah.
Just because there were 2 test matches where Australia went into the 5th day being on top, right?
Yeah.
And you'd expect the spinner to come into play at that
Exactly.
point. And I think over those 2 days, Nathan Lyon took 1 wicket.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, India played him really well. The way Gill played him, and kind of having a mix of attack and defense coming down the track.
Yeah.
And taking the attack onto him even on day 5. Pujara obviously being phenomenal. The way he kind of just patted the ball out of the way at times and did dead batting it with 4 men around the bat.
Yeah.
So amazing skill. Very different techniques, but it was very good to watch. Watching
Clearly,
how.
It clearly goes to show that it's good to have a variety of batsman type in your team. If you've got a couple of batsmen who are aggressive and attacking, that's great, but you also need a couple of batsmen who can play out deliveries. Exactly. So I think this was a perfect example of that.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows, you don't need to always go 3.5, 4 runs in a test match. There's still space for the old school. I mean, just looking at Pujara's stats, his average of 34, but his strike rate is 29. Again, that's ridiculously low. But if he's scoring 33 runs and his strike rate is 29, so he's batting 103, 104 balls every game.
Exactly.
Which means that the other batsman, right, is also doing the same.
Yeah, and that's the reason why you could say Pant was able to attack, on both those days in Sydney and in Brisbane. It's because Pujara is able to bat out for so long. He's able to hold the innings together. You can have all the other players, playing their shots. Look at Rahane in Brisbane in the last innings. He scored 29 or 22 deliveries.
Exactly.
He was scoring at a strike rate of over 100, and that's only because of Pujara.
Yeah. Which obviously they had a plan, right? Like, okay, if we can survive till say over number 60 and with 150 runs to go, then we'll go for it. And that's what they did. And maybe if they did lose a couple of wickets, then they could have just dead batted their way to a draw again.
Yeah, I mean, coming to the most impactful player in this series for Australia and India, what do you think?
Obviously, Australia has to be Marnus. I think there were lots of questions about him. He very good, but he was still playing at home. But can he do it against a quality pace attack? And I mean, looking at India's stats overall, okay, it wasn't India's first choice bowling attack.
Yeah.
But still, looking at how the rest of the team played him and how he played him, I think he was a top scorer from both teams.
Yeah.
So say for him one of a great series. And for India has to be Rishabh Pant, no doubt. I mean, one match saving and one match winning innings. Can't look beyond him. Obviously, a lot of credit to the whole team, and I think that's the thing. Even if you look at their batting, I think Smith and Labuschagne obviously are the top 2 scorers in the series.
Well, they scored 400 runs.
Yeah. But Smith skewed by two good innings. I think he didn't have the first 2 test matches. He had a really poor start.
Yeah.
And then the next number 3, 4, 5, 6. I think all of them are Indian batsmen. Some of them only played three test matches. So that just shows that it was only really Smith and Marnus for
Yeah.
Australia, and then the rest of it, Indians didn't have
Yeah.
one outstanding performance. Maybe Rishabh Pant, obviously, but he didn't get 100 in the series.
Yeah.
But the rest of them, obviously Rihane was he the only centurion for India in the
I
series?
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he was the only.
So it doesn't matter. You don't need hundreds all the time. You can get a crucial 70, 80, which wins you the game,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's where
It's a team
where
game at the end of the
exactly.
day, and India showed that very, very well. I mean, Pat Cummins took 20 wickets,
Yeah.
and Smith and Manis probably scored like 700 runs between themselves,
Yeah.
right? And highest wicket taker for India was Mohammad Siraj with 13 wickets, and
Yeah.
highest run scorer was Rishabh Pant, who scored 270 runs. So
Yeah.
just goes to show you, that you could have one or two brilliant performances, but
Yeah.
what wins you games is a team performance.
Exactly.
And coming to that, in my opinion, for Australia, I think the key player was Pat Cummins. Man, that
Yeah.
guy is something else. Like he was one bowler, even in his third and fourth spells, his speed was right up there, and he was consistently hitting that good length and hitting it
Yeah.
quite hard. So, in my opinion, Pat Cummins deserves to be the number one Test bowler in the world,
Yeah.
and he showed it why. And for India, I mean, there are so many heroes, right? Who do you pick? But I'll go with Pujara. And I know when we started Silly Point, right in the first episode, I made this point about it's important to see on average, how many balls a batsman bats in an innings in a test match, because that's crucial. And
Yeah.
that's why, I could think of so many reasons of having Pujara over David Warner in a test team, right?
Yeah.
No matter where they're playing. So, anyways, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
That's why I think Pujara just had a phenomenal impact on the
Yeah.
series. And just one quick point on Pant. I know people have blasted him. I know they've talked. People have said so many things. He probably has so much advice in his ears about what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
Man, that guy showed that if you let me
Yeah.
play my natural game, I'll win games for India.
Yeah.
He is going to struggle sometimes. He will play some silly shots at times, but that's just the way he plays.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's the same thing with Pujara, right? You can't ask him to score at a strike rate of 50 because that's not his game.
Yeah. But that's why you need both of them in the team, right?
Yeah,
That's why
you,
you need
you
that
need
balance. Yeah.
exactly you need both types of players so that you can have a nice balance. So I
Exactly.
think Pant has done brilliantly, phenomenally, and he's kind of sealed his spot in the team, whether he plays as a wicket keeper or whether he plays as specialist batsman.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion on Pant.
Yeah, I mean, we thought of doing a player rating, but I think because India had so many players, this player rating series would probably go on. But I think, to be honest, I mean, just by what we've discussed, most of India's team would probably overall get like 7s or 8s throughout. Right? I don't think there was, maybe Pant would get a 9 or 10, and Siraj probably gets a 9.
Yeah.
But all of them would be like 7s or 8s, right?
Exactly.
Except Kohli would get a 3. But anyway,
Well,
whereas for Australia,
let's leave Kohli out of that. This is the first time that
Yeah.
Virat Kohli is part of a test series. Well, he was at least for one test match, but no one's really talking about him.
Exactly. And whereas for Australia, you'd have Cummins and Marnus at 9s and 10s, whereas the rest you'd have like 3, 4s, 5s, right? So
yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's
David Warner. I know people keep talking about him as a great test batsman. Yes, I think he's good.
Yeah.
I think he's good, but in test matches, he's not yet at that level. Where you can count him as great.
But the problem with Australia is woes in the opening, slot means that he probably will be there around for a while. Because
there's nothing that Australia can do, right? Because they don't seem to have a good enough batsman. I mean, there was Cameron Bancroft, who seems to have fallen away after the after the Sandgate scandal, the sandpaper scandal, and then there was Matt Renshaw, who again has fallen off the radar.
He seems to just be playing Big Bash now. He's like a T20 player.
And he's batting at like 5-6. He's not even opening, So they've lost a couple of players. Like Marcus Harris doesn't look great. Joe Burns. I mean, Will Pukovsky looks good, but he's only had 2 innings and he's been injured. So I think a very tough situation for Australia to be in. Even the middle order struggling. Matthew Wade hasn't done much. Travis Head hasn't done much.
Yeah, and Cameron Green looks like a decent prospect.
Looks good. Yeah, looks good.
But obviously he needs more time. But I mean, he's a fast bowling all rounder, so maybe him and once Mitchell Marsh comes back, it'll be a good competition. But that's really it. I mean,
and they're going to South Africa next.
Yeah.
right? Again, it might be a tough series for Australia. I don't see them, getting to that World Test Championship final. I
Yeah.
think it might be India, New Zealand.
Yeah. Well, let's see if England can spoil the party, but
Not, really. It's a tough one. England are a good side, right? They're a good side, but
yeah.
it's unfortunate that some of their players, their spinners, for example, they just don't have enough experience to bowl in India.
Well,
They're going to
they
be
got
under
5 wickets each in the first test. So
well, by Dom Bess's own admission, that was the
yeah.
easiest 5 wicket haul he's ever got in his career. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't, and what's happening now is obviously Sri Lanka scored 370.
Yeah.
And all 10 wickets in this first innings were taken by the medium pacers. So
But
by
yeah, Anderson got a
Anderson,
6 for, right? So
exactly. So don't great signs for England in terms of their pace bowling.
yeah.
But I think their spinners are just not a match for any of the spinners in India.
Yeah, there's still some
But
time
we'll
for we'll go into that in detail.
yeah.
Especially, I think it'll be interesting to see with India as well. With some of the the more experienced players ready to come back.
Yeah.
Is there do they just walk back into the team, or some of these younger players who've been around, who've kind of won the series in Australia, do they deserve a longer run? So it'll be an interesting debate also to see.
Yeah, I agree.
Um,
Realistically, there's only there's probably going to be debate over Mohammad Siraj
yeah,
because he's the only one who's done so brilliantly well
yeah.
to deserve a starting 11 place. So I think there's going to be a
And maybe Washington should. Well, Jadeja probably isn't fit enough anyway. I don't know, but
yeah, no,
him,
Jadeja's not in the squad
yeah,
for the first two
okay,
tests, and I think he's out for the whole series. But then you've got Ashwin and Pandya,
yeah.
so maybe Pandya
Actually,
can see
the one thing I wanted to discuss with you, what's the future for Rohit Sharma as an opener? We discussed David Warner not being good enough as a Test match opener.
Well, Rohit Sharma was better, right? It's got to be said. He played two
He got
test
a
matches.
40 and a 50, right? Yeah,
Yeah, he got a 40 and a 50. He played two test matches. He at least scored some runs. Obviously, he had 14-day quarantine. He didn't have much match practice, and then he straight away opened for India
but
in a
what was
test
that
match.
one dismissal in the first things of the first of the last test where he went down the
Yeah,
track
to Nathan
towards the
Lyon.
end of the
Well,
day? I don't
again,
think any quarantine or practice has anything to. You can't blame
no,
that. That's just Sharma
it,
being Sharma.
yeah, that's just Sharma being Sharma, right? It's the same thing that we talk about with Rishabh Pant. You could say, oh, fine, he should have gone on and scored 200s,
Yeah,
right? But that's the way he plays.
yeah,
If he tries and changes that, he's probably not going to score. He's
yeah,
probably going to score 20, 30 and get out
yeah.
because he's going against his natural instinct. So I don't think, I think Rohit Sharma is still going to open for India, at least in the next two, at least until the World Test Championship,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's only the 4 test matches against England and then the championship. So for the next 5 test matches, it's probably going to be Gill and Rohit Sharma to open.
Yeah, it's surprising and then sad, for someone like Agarwal, who was probably India's only sure shot opener before the series, and now he's dropped down to like the second choice.
Yeah. And just a quick one on Prithvi Shaw.
Yeah,
I think he's just got to go back and score some
yeah.
runs in domestic cricket, tighten his technique, probably spend some time with Ricky Ponting
Maybe
again.
have a home series against Sri Lanka or Bangladesh.
So it's the hierarchy of the openers is pretty clear. You've got Rohit and
Gill.
Shubman Gill as the incumbent openers with Mayank Agarwal at the next one in, and maybe KL Rahul. KL Rahul again, versatile player. He can open and he can bat in the middle order. So
Yeah.
you've got options there. And do you think they're going to chat about giving the captaincy permanently to Rahane?
Uh, I'd like to think so, but I don't think they will. I think Kohli still needs to be relevant.
Yeah.
If it was anyone else but Kohli, if it was the other way around, then maybe.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, obviously Rahane is captain for 5 test matches now, and
Yeah.
obviously he's done 3 in a row now. He's been really, really good, but yeah, I guess it's not.
To be fair, like I said, I mean, in the first Test match, okay, India lost, but Kohli.
Yeah,
It's not Kohli's fault that there were 36 all out,
I
right?
agree. I agree. I mean,
Um,
I have always
so
maintained that Virat Kohli is a very good Test captain.
Yeah.
he lacks game awareness in the limited overs games, but
Yeah.
in test matches he's really good.
Yeah, I
That's
mean
what.
the only like proper innings he had as captain, as in the field, India bowled Australia for what 190 something. So
Yeah, and then he
can't
scored a
really blame
70
him,
as
right?
well. He
Yeah, you
scored a
can't blame.
70 as
Yeah,
well.
I think he still deserves it, and he it's not like his batting has really struggled
Yeah,
with his with because of his captaincy. Wide ball is a different question, but obviously won a series in Australia, so I think he has enough credit in the bank
yeah,
to kind of decide himself as at least for the test format,
yeah,
decide when he gives up his captaincy, similar to what Dhoni did, right?
yeah.
But he
Agreed.
was kind of he decided that it's time to move on.
What
Maybe
about?
the what
No, no, sorry. Go on. What were you
I
saying?
was saying, maybe the white ball decision might not be in his hands, depending
Yeah,
on what India do. I think the T20 World Cup this year probably is Kohli's last chance
yeah,
to get some trophies as captain. If they don't, then I think that's that.
yeah.
But we can
Fair.
discuss that another time.
I was going to ask, what about his counterpart Tim Paine? Where does he go
Oh,
from here?
the problem is Australia. They don't, unless they go with a fast bowler. They don't have
Pat
any other
Cummins.
options, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's Marnus. It's too soon for him. Warner Smith, they're not going to make as captain anymore, and then
yeah,
there's no one else who is certain to start in the team anyway.
yeah.
So who do
I
you go
agree. I
with?
mean, I would say because of lack of options, Tim Paine is going to carry on as
Exactly,
captain.
which is why how we got in the
Um,
first place, right? As Pant said, temporary captain. Now he's a permanent temporary captain. But yeah, I mean, yeah, we haven't really spoken much about Australia, to be honest. But I think that, I mean, they had their moments. Obviously, they were in the last two Test matches. They were ahead pretty much till the last day, or for 4.5 days. Um, but yeah, I mean, for Tim Paine, I think it's he'll stay on mainly because, I mean, as a batsman, he had a decent series. He got a couple of fifties, I think. I mean, you
Not
can
a
argue
50,
some of
yeah.
his field. You can question some of his field placings, but given how experienced this attack is, I think they have more say in how they set their fields and stuff.
Yeah, agreed.
Um, he's Payne is box office behind the stumps with his chatter and antics on the stump mic, but I think just because of lack of options. If obviously Warner and Smith hadn't done what they did, they would have had a chance to be captain. But maybe Marnus in a couple of years, but I think it's just too soon right now.
Agreed.
And by default, I think it just has to be Tim Paine.
Yeah, well, I guess if Tim Paine is fit, then he's probably going to go to the Ashes as captain, and
Yeah,
that might be his final series.
yeah. And the fact is, I mean, with the bat, he was pretty okay. So
He
it's
was
not like
good, yeah.
yeah. So at least he's performing. So I think that kind of, if he had like a poor series with the bat as well, averaging like 10, 15, and then also losing the series, then that would have probably even been more difficult.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
at least and a lot of times he had to come in when Australia's middle order had collapsed.
yeah.
For example, the 50 he got in the first Test match, which kind of got Australia to 190, also was because of him. So he's done something. At least he's done well with the bat. So
Yeah,
I think he has bought himself at least two more series. So,
fair
but yeah, if
enough.
they lose to Australia, or if they lose to South Africa and they lose to England, lose the Ashes, then yeah,
Well, I mean, by that time, the Ashes are in 2022, aren't they? So
yeah,
he'd probably be too old by then, anyways. So, yeah, if he loses to South Africa as well, then I think it's time up, right?
yeah.
I think
I
it's
mean, then
time
you have
up.
to give it to Pat Cummins. Maybe if you give it to a fast bowler, I don't.
Yeah.
It's tough, but
You give it to him for a year, wait for Manis to,
yeah,
score some runs out of Australia as well, and then give it to him. Simple.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, well. So that's our episode. I hope you enjoyed that. It has been an absolutely fantastic series to watch. And I think everyone is looking forward to the India England series as well. Um, so, as always, please do like, share, and subscribe, and keep supporting us and keep watching our videos. Um, Thank you for watching.
Thank you.